What if you could print in 5 colours instead of 4? And more importantly, what if you could save about this much filament? There's only one price to this, well, maybe 2, but the main one is you have to build it yourself. This is the Prusa MMU3, let's go. This video is sponsored by PCBWay, more on that later on. I did a survey to see what you all wanted to see from this video, and there was no clear consensus. That's a lie, but I thought if I pretend there's no clear consensus, then I can just ignore the results. What was a clear consensus is that nobody cares about the assembly process, which is great because I have about 80 gigabytes of 4K recordings of the assembly process. So let's look at the seeing how it works part of the process. This is the main MMU unit. This is the buffer, and these are the bits the filament sits on. And they're all joined together through tubes that the filament passes through. And there are a lot of tubes. Most of the parts that I had to print are printed out in blue, so if you see a blue part, then that's a part I had to print myself. This is ultramarine blue Prusiament PETG to be specific, because I don't ignore every poll that I put out there. I'm also glad that I didn't have to print this out in TPU because, yeah, I don't think on reflection that would have really worked that well. So we'll start by loading the buffer on this thing. You have to thread the filament through the pipe into the buffer from the end where the reel holder is. And then removing the cartridge reveals a thing with a spinning wheel. Whoever designed this is probably my age because this looks like kind of the same technology we used to use to put CDs into computers once. This was before the internet. You're probably not old enough. You have to loop the filament round and poke it back in again, and it will then go through the next series of tubes up to the MMU. But before it gets there, in order for this to load properly, you have to tell the MMU to expect it. Doing this starts the motor spinning in anticipation. Once it's made all the right noises and you're convinced it's loaded properly, it's on to the next colour until you have loaded all 5 or however many you want. Starting a print on the MMU is no different to how it was on the Mark IV before the MMU, and the process from this point onwards is entirely automated. And in terms of the slicer, it's very similar to every other multicolour machine I've used. Prusa Slicer has profiles for the MMU3, and you just add it and you pick the colours and you paint things using Prusa Slicer's inbuilt painting functions. So let's have a look at what happens mechanically during the printing process. One of the recurring questions I got in the comments of the survey that I did was people wondering about the reliability of the MMU3, and especially in light of problems that Prusa have had with previous versions of the MMU, even though I haven't had those, I've just heard about them. And so that was something that I was actually worried about myself too. I've not directly been keeping track of how many changes I've managed to do so far, but at the time of reading this script, I've actually had no errors at all with the MMU, which is actually quite surprising because that makes it, for me, more reliable than the original AMS on the Bambu X1, which is in itself quite reliable, but it also often stops and requires human intervention mid-print. For example, the filament will wind around the reel when it's trying to rewind and jam. Because the MMU3 hasn't failed yet, in what's definitely well over 1,000 changes, and counting, then I'm not really sure what kind of failure modes there are on this machine, or whether it will recognise that it's failed and stop, or whether it will fail the entire print. If that fact changes between script and final video, I will put something here to let you know. The other concern I have is actually about wear and tear. Nothing lasts forever, especially if parts of it are 3D printed themselves, and one of the things that Prusa themselves clearly identified in development was that some parts of the extruder as it was were prone to what now becomes premature wear and wouldn't have been premature wear before, because in normal use of the Mark IV you would not be doing thousands of changes. It's one of the primary problems with multicolour through one nozzle. You have to change the filament in and out several hundred times, even for the simplest of prints, so every layer you could be changing colour up to 5 times. The replacement extruder parts look to be made of CFPETG, at least I think so, and definitely SLS nylon, and that might be consumable itself, time will tell. I can see that most of the internal contact surfaces of the MMU unit itself are bearings or PTFE tubing or those kind of wheels that are hobbed, whatever you call them, so it's perfectly reasonable to think that in that respect it won't wear much, or no more than a standard extruder. This isn't something I can give you the answer to in any kind of reasonable timescale, although I might revisit this in 6 months. So let's compare poop. Here's a Bambu P1S, and boy does it poop. I did reasonable like-for-like print comparisons in the slicer for a few of the models that I printed, and I think you can see that the poop is a lot lower with the MMU3. The reason for this is actually pretty simple. The Bambu system uses a cutter when it changes filament, and the MMU3 doesn't. This means that the MMU has a harder time doing something called tip forming, which is not entirely unlike a cold pull, but not cold. You can see how straight after a colour change with the MMU3, the colour comes out almost entirely correct initially, whereas the Bambu system has to push a lot of filament that it abandoned in the nozzle first before it can get to the right colour. And the problem with this is that the filament doesn't push out just straight in a line. It's like the water in a river, it will travel faster in the centre than it does at the edge. So this of course means that you have to push a lot more material out to get a full colour change. I should mention that the recent Bambu update does implement an improved retract and cutting algorithm, as you can see, and I took that into account when giving the results earlier. The MMU3 obviously requires a Prusa machine, preferably a Mark IV, I think, and it requires some time to build. I spent a couple of days leisurely building it, and I didn't encounter any issues, although the process is quite involved, especially compared to other systems where you just plug the AMS in and you're ready to go. The biggest downside of this system, though, when compared to other printers like the Bambu, the Excel, or the many and varied printers that are on the horizon in 2024, is actually the space that it takes up. I think this is a lot more room than any other system, and I think you'd have to be pretty dedicated to the idea of 5-colour printing to be willing to have this thing around. But if you do, I think you'll find the Prusa MMU3 system a perfectly reasonable 5-colour system that seems to have been really well finished and is actually surprisingly reliable. And it has some obvious advantages too. Different spool sizes are not a problem, cardboard reels are not a problem, you can even feed it out of a dryer, for example. It absolutely is not compatible with flexibles though, and there's no way to really make that happen with this amount of PTFE tubing. For that you need a tool changer or an IDEX. So while this video is about printing in colour, I noticed something new about the sponsor of this video, which is PCBWay. PCBWay are manufacturers of custom PCBs, among other things, and the new thing that I noticed is that they now have the ability to make PCBs, or rather the silkscreen on the PCB, in full colour. This is new and it's in beta, but it actually looks pretty easy to use, and I'm going to give it a go next time I order a PCB myself. It looks like you just have to include a standard image file in JPEG format or similar, and mark where you want them to put the image, and they'll sort it out. If you have any suggestions on what image I can try this with and put on a PCB, then let me know in the comments. Outside of colour PCB silkscreen, PCBWay can supply you with pretty much any PCB you need, and their order system is quick and easy. All you need to do is take your existing PCB designs, export the Gerber files, and upload them to the quick PCB order page. Pick the options you need, and that's all there is to it. You can also use PCBWay to manufacture 3D printed parts in both FDM and resin, and also metal, and it's equally simple to upload your STL files for those too. Thank you PCBWay for sponsoring this video, and make sure to check the links below. So what do you think? As always, let me know in the comments, and if you're interested in the MMU or the Mark IV, or even the XL, which obviously is the best multicolour system by far in the market right now, then check the links in the description, and as always, clicking those does help the channel out if you buy literally anything, because I get a commission, so I do appreciate if you do that. If you have any questions about something that I haven't covered, let me know and I'll try and answer. I don't think this is the last that I'll be showing you this system, but that is all for now. I will see you next time for probably diamondback nozzles or a review of this thing. Thank you for watching.